I've always really wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I knew ultimately I wanted to make more income than someone was willing to pay me. I've got insurance experience and realized that this company here is a company where you can buy an agency. You could buy your way into something that someone established.
It's crazy. It's like, this is one of the few businesses, the person running the funds and with the fiduciary responsibility doesn't feel compelled to invest what it takes to create traffic to their business.
15 years, there's been a ton of great opportunities. Some of you just don't take those opportunities and then bitch about like whatever's going on now, and they don't have that large of an agency, and it's like, well, they didn't take the risk.
You're going to find a lot of other people willing and happy and able to complain. Challenging part is finding the people who don't, and then associating yourself with them, because then you stop complaining and you start winning.
Hey everyone, Adam Pisani here. I am an insurance agent in the Houston, Texas area, and I'm an insurance dude.
Yeah, well, tell us that story.
Well, Emily reached out to me to visit with you guys, and as many of us have been throughout our careers, kind of at divides at different times with changes and where do we want to go and who do we want to be when we grow up, and I decided to stay, and I guess it's worked out for me. So it's been almost 19 years I've been an agent. It's been a great ride, very appreciative for all I've accomplished, and happy to share more with y'all today.
Oh, love it. So you were so you said that you actually sold that other part of the agency to somebody else.
For me, I've always tried to capitalize on where the company is going. So you go where where they dangle the carrot if you want to maximize the opportunity. And so, but like with any corporation, there's been tremendous change over the years, and sometimes you question whether or not you want to stay on the bus. But it's been tremendous to me. I've acquired, probably somewhere near 15 agencies, have had as many as 3 physical locations. I did shed one location, a larger agency at the start of last year, so about a year and a half ago. Been fortunate to grow tremendously, have significant luck in hard work meets luck, I guess you could say, in organically growing the last few years. So it's been a good ride.
That's awesome. So, I'm curious. We can start from the beginning.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, let's start from the beginning. But I do have some questions about your strategy.
Yeah, so. Just complete how'd I get here and my journey.
Like what got you into this business?
Yeah,
nobody wanted to be an insurance agent when they were young.
Yeah, that's true. I still don't know if I want to be one today, but but it's treated me well. And I've got a son in college and a daughter going to college, and it more than pays the bills, right? I've always really wanted to be an entrepreneur. I mean, that was I remember telling a story the other day. My wife's grandpa said I was always looking for a quick buck, and I kind of took offense to that because I work my butt off, and I've always been willing to work my butt off. But I knew ultimately I wanted to make more income than someone was willing to pay me. And that's kind of creating your own destiny, right? Yeah. After undergrad, it's funny, after a lot of years of dealing with employees and customers, you're kind of fine saying, well, you could put me in a cubicle and just leave me alone and I'll be just fine. Right. But in undergrad, I was in accounting and thought, I don't want to just sit in a cubicle and do work all day. So, let's get into finance. And I honestly wanted to get out of school a little quicker too. So graduated in finance and started in claims with another company. And did well, but you reach a ceiling there pretty quickly when you're working for someone else. And as they say, claims is the expense side of it. They're always looking to cut expenses, right? So you can either be on the sales side or the expense side, revenue side or expense side. Started looking for businesses to buy after grad school and realized, I've got insurance experience, and realized that this company here is a company where you can buy an agency. You could buy your way into something that someone established. And to me, it still kind of just gets to me today to think that I could start something from scratch and, maybe spend 20, 30, 40 years growing it. Or I could come in and find something that someone else spent 20, 30, 40 years growing and acquire it. And I've always been a fan of, I'm willing to pay a fair price for a fair business, because I'd much rather have cash flow with debt than no debt but no cash flow, right? And so I got my start. I found an agency that had been around just that 25 years back in 06, acquired my first agency, and did that because people would say, well, it's like a franchise. You're associated with a company. They call all the shots. They don't like agents to have more than one location. But fortunately did very well, was put on a national and regional board and was able to acquire a second location. And then I talked a little bit about the carrot, and it's like today where here someone wants to be an agent and they maybe, they might want to be associated with the blue company, right? But they say, I want to do commercial. This company doesn't do commercial, so you're in the wrong place.
Right.
And so I think a lot of it's finding out what you want to be when you grow up. Make sure you align yourself with a company that wants to be the same as you, right? Or if you're about maximizing your opportunity, whatever that may be. And that was me. I was more interested in being an entrepreneur than being an insurance agent, right? I mean, managing staff and learning how to get better at being a great manager or a good manager, and learning how to take care of customers, which is in every industry, right? To me, it was more about a revenue equation and how much revenue can I make and the margins that go along with it. So started buying agencies, and talking about following the carrot. Just as with any corporation, people come and go, and that means leaders too. And so one leader may lead today and decide, we're going right. And then tomorrow another leader comes in and decides they want to go left. And so I told you a story just a second ago about how they said, well, it's really hard to buy more than one agency, but come in and do well and get to a place where you're allowed to buy more than one agency. And then I've been told, oh, you can never buy and merge again. They're never going to allow that again. And then you get a leader that comes in and decides the bigger comes from the auto industry, and the bigger dealerships are better and the small ones don't produce enough volume. And so sure, go out and buy and merge and we'll let you. And so, I capitalized on that. So, I would define my success by taking the time to understand where the company was going and making sure I follow that road.
Yeah, I love that. That is one of those strategies. I think that is one of the more uncommon strategies, because I think people are afraid, right? Like you're coming in with this entrepreneurial spirit where you're almost less attached. Do you ever find that agents that have been an agent for a while and have had one agency, and there has been opportunities here and there throughout, the last 15 years, there's been a ton of great opportunities. They move the carrot around and stuff. Some of you just don't take those opportunities and then bitch about like whatever's going on now, and they don't have that large of an agency. And it's like, well, they didn't take the risk. Mm-hmm. But then again, the initial risk is really just getting involved.
Yeah.
All the rest is like you're already involved. So it's like, but
yeah, man, I think if I'm doing pros and cons on anything, right? If I think kind of from that scenario, I remember when I bought the first agency and joining a B&I group, because the agent that was retiring said, hey, you need to join a B&I and network in the community. And, simple rules like showing up for the meetings because we depend on one another, and some people can't show up. They can't show up on time. They can't follow rules. And so finding out, who you are and who you want to be is so important, because I thought, hey, I want to make a lot of money, and that's why I want to be self-employed. I'm willing to take risks to make money. And then I learned, well, some people want to be self-employed because they can't follow what Jason asked them to do, and I'm fine. If you say, hey, Adam, you'll be rewarded if you kind of follow me. Let's go, Jason. I'm fine. But others want to be self-employed because they want to go, if you're going right, they want to go left. And that's fine. I think that's kind of finding your place. And then others, believe I'm comfortable making X, but I want a certain lifestyle, not necessarily monetary lifestyle, but, I want to work 4 hours a day. That's not the kind of person I necessarily look up to, but there's people out there like that, and so be it, right? So that's, you kind of define who you are. And I think that gets back to long ago, most agents with most companies were W-2, right? They weren't entrepreneurs. They weren't they may have had some drive, but they followed the company that they were associated with very closely. They didn't think out of the box. They didn't think about things about acquiring other agencies or growing or getting to a certain level. And so, it's like when you talk to people about, I can tell you A to Z exactly what we do on a daily basis, but if you don't have what I call the fire in the belly, right? If you don't have the momentum and the want, it doesn't really matter because you're not going to do it, right? So nothing that we do is rocket science, but it's being able, it's wanting it bad enough, right? It's kind of having an idea that this is a vehicle to get me to where I want to go, and then how much am I going to control the gas pedal?
100%.
Yeah, I think it's really, we talk about this a lot with folks in our group and all that. It's real easy to get caught up in the emotional aspect of it and let that rule it, right? Whereas if we could just stay logical, it isn't rocket science. We're not doing brain surgery. It's pretty straightforward, and it's a pretty simple equation to figure out what it takes to get to where you want to go. What's remarkable is how many agents will plug along and not know that equation, right? Yeah. And instead of figuring out that was me for many years, right? It's like, and I think a lot of us go through that, where it's you don't know the equation, you keep going, well, how are you doing that? And then they'll say, well, I buy leads and I have this and that, and you're like, oh, how about you $8,000 a month? And you're like, oh, well, okay. And it's crazy. It's like, this is one of the few businesses where the owner of the, the person running the funds and with the fiduciary responsibility doesn't feel compelled to invest what it takes to create traffic to their business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I think, there's a lot there. I mean, I mentioned a second ago about historically an agent being a W-2 person, and it was, go talk to your friends and family about insurance and get referrals. And, like every industry, the world is just a completely different world. So it's about volume now. It's not about, being best friends with every policyholder and only having 500 policyholders. I need 10 or 15 or 20,000, or depending on what your personal goals are, I need a lot of them. Right. And a lot of people, and even me, I started in a time where people weren't writing a lot of business. So for me at that time, it was more of hold on to what you have and try to maintain it. And then I've had to adjust to that because I've seen agents come in at different times where, everything's just blowing and going, right? I mean, they're just writing business hand over fist. And I kind of felt like I was at a disadvantage. Like they came in and instantly either knew how to sell or learned to sell very quickly and really jumped on board, where I came in at a different time. And, it makes me smile tremendously when I see someone that the light bulb finally goes off, right? I mean, you see someone that I was fortunate in chasing the carrot, not necessarily in the early years. It wasn't writing a lot of business, but I made sure I always took the time to say, if this company is going to pay me the most amount of money, if I do this, I'm doing that. Yeah. Right. So that was me. I never wanted to necessarily be on a leaderboard. I wanted to maximize revenue. I don't need recognition. I don't care if you say, well, I wrote the most autos or the most homes. It's, did I maximize my revenue? And it is beautiful when you see that light go off and you see agents kind of click and then they're just crushing it. But this is our conversation so much more about, I think, each of us finding out what we want and pursuing it and how to be the best at what you want than insurance. And someone say the other day that I think more than doctors, right? I mean, it's very good to a lot of people in the industry, but it's simply a vehicle to help you, maybe achieve financial success or, to be an entrepreneur and have a certain lifestyle. But it's taking the tools and then using them to get what's important to you.
Yeah. So how did you do that for yourself? What kind of tools have you used, and when did you identify, oh, I don't need to just kind of slough along, there is a way?
Yeah. I think I can tell you, I remember. So when I bought my first agency, interestingly enough, it was after the hurricanes had really hit Florida. There were multiple back to back, um, and then so the company took a stance that, hey, we have too much exposure, and we're going to have to really cut back. We're going to have to do non-renewals, and I paused on buying an agency, thinking, is this the right thing? Am I getting myself into the right thing? And my wife actually, I'd say I'm more risk tolerant than she is. But she said, hey, you're associating yourself with a large company that they're going to figure things out, and it's going to be okay. And I took the plunge, but and talking about numbers, I love numbers and would like to say I'm a numbers guy. And I see some of these agents today just spending all day just looking at, where they're marketing and the sales that are coming in, and really analyzing data to say, well, am I that much of a numbers guy? But I was enough of a numbers guy where you could tell me, hey, Adam, retention needs to be here, and new business items need to be here, and this is what you're going to get as a reward. And I knew exactly how to maximize that, and I just drove those numbers. I think about my wife's grandfather. It talks about the trucking guys that were associated with Walmart over there in North Louisiana and South Arkansas. But he talked about a guy that would keep a little piece of paper in his shirt pocket, and he knew to the penny every day, how much it cost him on diesel for that truck and the maintenance. But it's about, again, like any industry, insurance is one industry and one vehicle, but it's about knowing your numbers, right? So you talk about spending $8,000 on leads. I think where a lot of people make a mistake is, all right, Craig, give me $8,000 worth of leads. Hey, y'all go sell those leads. Oh shit,
Right,
Craig,
right.
we didn't sell any this month. I can't give you another 8,000, right? But do I know how to sell them? Do I set standards with my staff? And the fire in the belly piece is, am I involved? Do I care enough to I've been involved in other businesses, and I've learned the hard way. If you're not driving results, you usually get a much different outcome, right? So you could be absentee, but that doesn't mean everyone loves to think, oh, I can just buy a business and it's just going to run itself. And that, that's not real reality, So it's about having I keep going back to fire in the belly, but just kind of having that focus and the desire to get somewhere, and you're willing to put forth the effort and energy to drive it.
What's kept you on track?
It's kind of like, and I am no Tom Brady, but I thought about Tom Brady because actually my father-in-law made a comment this weekend. I was talking about who's Mac Brown, the old UT coach, and he was associated, I think, in North Carolina with a team, and they just let him go. But he's 73 years old, and I was kind of making a joke this weekend of, why he was one of the highest paid coaches decades ago with UT, and it doesn't become a money deal anymore. I mean, we all enjoy making money; it's fun, but if you enjoy maximizing revenue in a business, you probably enjoy winning too. And so it's about winning. And you get used to something, and it feels good to win. It feels good to be on top. And I think, it becomes more about that sort of mentality. And I talk about changes. Every company is going to continue to change. And a lot of these changes are significant. And you've got to decide, hey, do I want to go through that change, or do I want to call it and say I'm out, I'm ready to do something different, or whatever. But I think it's both the nervousness and the challenge of kind of continuing to go through change and continuing to find a way to kind of come out on top, right? And if you got the right mindset, you're not happy saying, fine, you take your carrot and you go down the road, and I'm just going to sit here and be happy, because it's not in the DNA, right? The DNA says, I'm going to keep getting that carrot. You just buy as many carrots as you want, because I'm going to keep taking them.
Love that.
I mean, they lay it out every year, right? They go, you need to do this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
and then we have a pretty simple business. We've already even talked.
Yeah.
You can do this if you do these. I mean, take it down to dials, right? If you
Yeah.
do this many dials, you'll get to that thing that'll pay you this much.
Yeah.
So why do only 5% of the agents get it?
I mean, to me, more than anything, is desire, right? I mean, we are all built differently. Certainly, some of us are more intelligent than other. But like we said at the beginning, it's not rocket science either. It's really desire. Always, I love to say fire in the belly, because I talk about two salespeople. I can show two salespeople how to sell, but I tell them I can't do it for them. Right. So they've got to have the want. They've got to have the desire. And if you look, I've got about 15 salespeople right now, and I have my top 5 salespeople are probably going to make mid 100s this year, which is a great income. Historically, I've never had salespeople do that well. But then you got that middle bucket and you got that bottom bucket too. And the bottom bucket may be average, because if you're not average, we can't afford to keep you. But there's still going to be a difference between that bottom 5 and that top 5. And that's that fire in the belly, right? The desire. At the start of this year, I'm about 36 million in premium right now. And the start of this year, they said you got to grow 10% to maximize your bonus. Grow auto 10%. No one's ever done that. We've never had goals like that in my 20 years. And, certainly for an agency that size, you're talking about a big feat, especially with all the rate we've taken and retention where it is. And, but I refuse to not give in this year and make sure that I maximize my revenue. And here we are in December, and I've maxed out at the end of October. So
there you go.
I've grown over 10%, and knock on wood, we'll finish December strong and celebrate and wipe. One thing like agents always say, you wipe the board clean in January and you start over. So it's you celebrate in your mind for about 5 seconds, and then you start thinking about what you got to do for the new year. So.
Yep. So I'm curious on like your thought process and your strategy on purchasing and selling agencies, because that's a lot of agencies throughout the years.
Yeah. For me, I've always been very strategic. I mentioned kind of chasing the carrot. So
yes,
there's some scenarios, I get that a large corporation throughout the U.S., they divvy up goals, and nothing's, life's not fair, right? So it says, well, my goals are harder than your goals, and that's not fair. So there's been scenarios where I'm in a coastal area, and they say, well, you got to grow by X, but X includes writing home, and we can't write home. I said, fine. If I'll play your game. I'm going to go out and buy an agency that's producing growth somewhere else. And,
Were you in California?
That's the game. I've never been in California,
okay.
But just in Texas, right? So all these different things, startup agencies and this and that. But my point was kind of finding a way to get to, if you want growth, you're paying someone else you're buying growth from a startup agency, and then you're giving me a goal that's not really attainable based on the products you're giving me to sell at the current time.
Sure.
But fine, we could play this game. I can go buy another agency, and then I can get your growth, right? And then you're going to pay me and reward me for it. So it's finding a way to win based on where they want the carrot to be, right? And some of those are strategic about great deals. I have friends that have had between 10 and 15 offices, all small agencies. And the value there isn't as much. You don't have the economies of scale. So if you be strategic about what I said at the beginning is, I said, they usually don't like you to buy another agency. If you work hard enough and do well enough, maybe that's not true, right? So then you have more than one agency. Well, you can never merge. Well, one day their leader comes in and allows you to merge, and then you could pick up books, you merge them in, you get economies of scale. Instead of having 5 or 10 offices with 2 or 3 people sitting in each office, maybe you have 2 or 3 offices with 10 or 15 people sitting in each office. To me, it was also, you heard me say revenue a lot, but one of the things I always remember too is there was an agent that was around for many, many years that said, I may make more revenue than this other agent, but he profits more. And that margins are important to me too. So I don't want revenue for the sake of revenue. To me, it was a big deal on how do I manage expenses, and a lot of that comes down to how much you're willing to work. How hard are you willing to work? How hard are you willing to drive results? How hard are you willing to? How much are you willing to hold people accountable? Because I don't care if I make 10 million in revenue and I give most of it back with no margin. What am I doing it for, right? You're better off making 5 million in revenue with having a significant margin on it, right? And that's always been important to me. And where I took notes compared to others is, I wanted the margin. So I wanted to maximize the revenue opportunity, but not doing it for the sake of maximizing it. I wanted it to be a healthy business too.
And I know that there's some agents that have that love what they do and love that they just took a measured approach, and that's awesome. Great. I need more excitement.
Yeah.
So, and I think everybody on this,
exactly.
Jason and you, Adam, it's just like taking that risk, the perceived risk, when really at the end of the day, I don't know that there's that much risk when you do the math right? When you understand the math and you look at all the numbers, sure, there's some uncontrollables, but at the end of the day, it kind of works itself out as if you could keep your head out of it, right? Once you've done the logical and you have the math, if you can keep your emotions in check and not be too crazy about it, and just stay consistent, it works, right?
And that is the beauty of our industry is, it's not extremely volatile, right? I mean, the carrier companies you're associated with can make changes. Yeah, you can lose a customer. But it's a pretty steady industry and pretty steady business. Like I said, everybody needs insurance, and we lost the. So it's very rewarding, and certainly, like you said, no one's listening to your podcast because they want to work 2 hours a day and be lazy. They're looking at how do I get to that next level, and we can both agree that it's doable if you've got the desire.
Yeah. So if I'm doing my math right here, you had to grow by 3.6, right? Is that right? You had to grow by 3.6 million?
I tell you, in the last year and a half, growth, I've grown by about 10 million in premium. Since I sold, I was about 45 million at the beginning of last year and sold off 17, went back to 26, and then I'm already back to 36 now. So
only in Texas.
Only in Texas.
Maybe Colorado.
Well, yeah, there's a couple states, but Texas has been good for sure.
Texas is a good one.
Texas is good.
So I'm gonna share the story because it is fun, and I was a little bitter for a while.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
I'm older and less emotional now. So. And in retrospect, I'm actually glad that it didn't go through because I didn't have to leave where I was, and everything's worked out, right? Everything happens for a reason.
Things have a way of working out.
And it was definitely a learning experience. So, so I went out to Sugarland.
Yeah,
you say, are you still in Sugarland?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, that's the office I sold at the beginning of last year
Gotcha.
in Missouri City. So you've got that whole area. It's kind of southeast part of Houston, Richmond, Sugarland, Missouri City.
Yeah. So we went out, checked out the agencies. I didn't know what I was a financial advisor still, and I had left Merrill Lynch and was working at a bank, and I was kind of in this situation where it's like, damn it, I shouldn't have left Merrill. Like they wanted me to start this bank program, and they oversold it. And they threw a lot of money, so it seemed great, but then it was like, this isn't great.
Yeah.
None of what they said was happening. So that's about when I ran in, when we found you, or, we went out there.
Yep.
So I was literally like this with my middle finger at the bank and like ready to go. And so we get out there, had a great time. Everything's great.
Yeah.
Everything seems awesome. And then right before I sent over the purchase agreement, he goes, yeah, okay, I'm going to sign it, but I'm going on the trip. So he's headed to Australia to go on the big trip. And I'm like, oh man, he's going to come back. And if not him saying, his wife is going to be like, why would you give this up? And that's what happened.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. And it's so interesting how like something that seems so bad at the time. I mean, there were a lot of lessons there, right? First of all, I was celebrating before I got in the end zone, right? Don't do that. You drop the ball, right? And then just, man.
I can tell you, and lessons for me, I can tell you I'm still a little, I sold off. We talk about changes and company changes and the world changes. And so I sold off that $17 million in premium last March. And I delivered that person a silver platter. And I still feel like I'm a little bitter about it. Like, should I have done it? Was the right thing to do. You've got to be at peace with what you do. And I still have a big agency. I'm kind of, we all get up there in age. And so I think it was time, and I understand why I did it, and I think I can make sense of it. But also the lesson to me is there's constant change. And sometimes it's painful. And I can't recall what it was back at that time that had me questioning it. But you look back and you say that would have been stupid on my part, right? To get out that early. I've seen over the years so many people get bitter, and I've got a close friend that was a large Allstate agent, got bitter over something that was really his own doing, and he shouldn't have got bitter about. And I know he regrets selling when he sold, right? So I've seen agents over the years that they get all upset about something, they decide they're going to go a different route. And they regret it. So, and I've been fortunate to be involved in other businesses and enough to know that nothing's easy. The insurance is a tremendous opportunity. It's been very good to me. And so sometimes you got to tell yourself to slow down too and think about what you're really trying to accomplish and what you want to be when you grow up, right?
Yeah. So the duality, right? Because you have to move quick, but you also have to slow down.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think of it on a daily basis now. You think of as my youngest finishes high school, it's like, well, how many more years I have and what do I want to do? But I've seen agents wrestle with this for 20 years I've been here, right? It's the same analogy I'm talking about, the old football coaches or football players. It's, no one ever wants to give it up, and but they'll complain about it. So.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely more complainers than there are.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and that's what sets the business owners, people, go-getters, whatever we want to call them, that's going to listen to your podcast, or people that, they're trying to figure out, how do I get to that next level? They're not the person that's just going to sit and moan and groan, because we don't want those people listening anyway. And so, you choose what you want to be and who you're going to be. And being positive it goes a long way with whatever you do, right?
Well,
it's about the carrot, right? I mean, every company you're associated with, every industry you're in, they're all going to have their good and bads, their pros and cons. And you could tell any of them to take your carrot and do what you want with it. I'm going to do something else. But then you're probably not going to be as successful as you want to be. Or if, whether it's insurance or, whatever company, industry, you find what drives that company and that industry, and you chase that carrot, and you're probably going to be very pleased with your success.
Sure. But you are going to have hard work.
But it's, absolutely, right? Nothing's easy. Nothing worth having is easy, right?
I mean, even if you're not doing the work, somebody is, and you have to control them.
Yeah.
So that's hard. That's arguably the hardest thing is being able to let go and get them to do it.
Accountability.
Right?
Accountability. Absolutely.
Today's been a big accountability day.
Accountability.
So what a day.
It's funny though that you say like what I'm going to be when I grow up, because I've thought about this a lot in the past. Because if anybody knew me prior to insurance, they're like, what are you getting into? Like, you're the last person. So, I guess I wrestled a little bit with that. And when I first started coming in a suit and everything. And but it's funny how we do associate our identities with what we do. And there is that thought of like, this is the thing that I'm doing for the rest of my life. But it's like, since then, I mean, I'm involved in multiple businesses now, and I'm like, hey, I like changing stuff around. Like, I realized like the thing that I'm never going to do is just do one thing. Like, and it made me feel so much better. It's like, oh, okay. So then I can look at stuff more, like I can tell that you look at your business more objectively rather than subjectively. And I think a lot of times people look at it subjectively, and that's why they get so huffy and puffy about changes and this and that. It's like, dude, you're not what you do. Like necessarily.
Well, you can't let, which is difficult, right? Because as humans, and we have a way of letting things define us, but you can't let one thing define you. But the positive, everything we kind of throw into there, the go-getter entrepreneur, realizing that insurance is a vehicle, and it's an absolute great vehicle, right? To help you achieve, whether it's financial success or independence, or I'm tremendously grateful for everything it's helped me achieve. I felt like I've had, it's given me, the career to the extent that you want a career. It's given me kind of the freedom and flexibility, the kind of the financial autonomy to do what you want, like you talked about. Choose to invest in multiple businesses. I can, it's a beautiful vehicle that you can allow it to be what you want it to be if you just kind of focus. You got to get there, right? You got to get down the road. But it'll get you down the road if you're willing to put in the work and time.
Yep. Yeah. 100%.
So
I love it. I like your story because it's, it's pretty unique in the sense where, you don't meet many agents that buy and sell that often. You know?
Yeah. I mean, and that I was passionate about it, and I've seen some, we see stats about so much of the agent force is new since 2015. So it doesn't take long. And after nearly 20 years, 19 years, you start to feel like the old guy in the room. And then you see other people kind of maybe doing what you did, but even faster or even more. Or I've always been pretty humble to, there's always somebody out there better than you, right? There's always somebody you can learn from. And so it's I love success stories. I love seeing people just kind of, knock the cover off the ball and do well. And that's the beauty about how this country and everything. It's just, I would say there's so many people doing so many things, making so much money, right? That's why I talk about insurance being a vehicle. It's finding what you want and going after it. And I think this is more about kind of focus and desire and fire in the belly, right?
And plugging in with the right people. You gotta surround it. Like we know, right? It is 100% that 80+% of the people that are in the same industry or in the same world are going to be on the negative side, right? Like if you go associate and complain, you're going to find a lot of other people willing and happy and able to complain.
Yep, absolutely.
The challenging part is finding the people who don't. Right. And then associating yourself with them, because then you stop complaining.
Yep.
And you start winning. Right.
And that's a great subject. I mean, I found, and heck, this might have been at the time when you and I first met and I was thinking about selling, is when I first started, I was told, kind of entrench yourself in the environment, right? Meet other agents. And I met an agent that was a large agency, but all he did was complain all the time.
Yeah.
And I found myself kind of talking to him and complaining with him, and always thinking the grass is greener. And to your point, I mean, I always worked extremely hard and was fortunate to do well from day one, but always still, listen to those complaints and, felt like, well, why the company's changing this or the company's changing that, or moaning and groaning about this or that, and realizing that I don't want to associate myself with those people. Right. And I'm even pretty blunt. As we get older, our time gets more limited, and we could choose. You kind of, if you work hard enough to kind of get that financial autonomy, you kind of choose who you want to associate yourself with. And I had an agent call me just the other day and said, "Oh, I'd love you to help me." And I said, "Fine." I've always been pretty open to helping people. But I said, I sold my office last year by you, so I'm 30 miles up the road now, which is I should charge for my time, but wasn't even going to charge for my time. Was going to go to lunch with him. Simply said, you drive yourself up here. It was too far to drive for him. And I was very clear on the phone. I said, "You know what? I'm not going to waste my time with you. I have no interest in meeting with you. If a 30-minute drive isn't worth your time, you're not going to do what it takes to be successful anyway. So I'm just going to waste my breath." And he said, "Well, fine. Okay." And, a person like that isn't going to change. Hopefully he went home and slept on it that night and realized that, he's got issues. People like that don't wake up the next day and suddenly decide to get on a different boat.
Did you meet him?
I've known the agent, but I guess it was an example of what Craig was talking about. It was an agent that, he wants to hear the ideas, but it's like we've heard 100 times.
Right.
It's
not going to execute.
I can tell I'm not going to execute, right? Because I'm not willing to put in the work and the effort.
Yep.
And I don't even have the patience nowadays to waste my breath. If you're willing to do the work, I'd love to help you, right?
What's wild is like the work, right? We keep talking about the hard work or the work. It's like you're doing the work either way, right? And if you're doing the shitty work, the 80, you're part of the 80% that's getting the shitty results. You're working harder.
Yeah.
Like you're answering the phones, you're taking payments, you're doing all the BS, the $8.
I can do it or I can drive it, right? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like, come on, man. Yeah. You gotta, like, if you truly believe and want to be a business owner, right? And it's arguable whether we really are or not, but let's just say we are, or partially. We're the company may say that we are, but right. So I mean it's now I just lost my train of thought with my side.
Well, just talking about, the work. It is to your, what you're getting at is I can spend all day sitting here, maybe answering some emails or doing this or doing that. And at the end of the day, I have to ask myself, did I do something to move the needle? Right. So
hell no.
That's to your point. Am I spending my time on the right activities to drive the business, to drive results, to achieve what I really want to achieve?
Yeah.
Or am I just sitting my rear end in a chair and just feeling good about it?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can't, just because you're busy doesn't mean you're making money.
That's right.
Right.
That's exactly right.
And it's the same way, like the old Craig would hire a great producer and ruin them by making them make 500 calls a day or whatever, right? Like doing the wrong activity. Right.
Yeah.
Because, in the mind that I had associated with the people that were giving me the wrong advice, it's like, no, you don't want to get a telemarketer. That's an extra expense. You don't want to buy leads. That's an extra expense. You need to just get the yellow page. It's like, no, man, what are you talking about? Right? Like, how much does it cost every time one of those people that you spend all the time hiring, when they walk out the door because you're not giving them any opportunity and you're making them make dials like an $8 telemarketer? No way. Right.
Yep.
So, but it's hard. It's hard to shift to that thinking. And especially when 80% of the people around you are, on the negative side of it.
Yep.
So it's just
got to choose who we want to be.
Listening to this, get away from them. Run
fast.
Yeah. And old Craig would have thought, man, what a jerk. He won't even drive over there to help the guy. And it's like, no, I mean, you're willing to even give time. Yeah. And that's the other thing. The younger people don't understand how valuable the time is because they got all the time in the world, right? I mean, you hit 50 and you're like, shit, man, I don't have much longer.
Well, that's right. That's right. You said when you're young, you have all the time you want, no money. And when you get older, if you do things right, hopefully you have some money, but time is more valuable, right?
Yeah. So. Well, you realize, oh, geez, it isn't that hard to make money. Like it is. And then all of a sudden it isn't.
Yeah.
And then it's like, damn. Yeah. Now I got to figure out how to live longer.
We should have figured this out 20 years ago, right?
Yeah. Well, we just got to figure out how to make it to with the AI makes you live forever.
I'm gonna need new knees and new. I'm about to go exercise and try to do the right things. It's still tough.
Yep.
Yeah. So it is.
Let's what would be the number one piece of advice you'd give to like any agent that's coming into this? You've had 20 years doing this and you've had incredible success and you've kind of seen it from all angles. So
I haven't always done a perfect job of this in terms of kind of writing out your plans. But I feel like mentally I've always had them. And I think that's, have a plan and work the plan. All the cliche things are just really true, right? I mean, what Craig and I were talking about a second ago is I will hold myself accountable from time to time because I can sit here and do things to fill my day, but then I have to stop and ask myself, did I do something today that helps me get where I want to go? Right. So if it's growing 10% on auto because I want the dollars the company I'm associated with is going to give me for maxing that goal, what did I do today to make sure I get there by the end of the year? Right. So, I mean, I think for someone first starting out, it's what do I want to be when I grow up? Right. So, I mean, it's that plan is, I'm starting with this and I want to get to this place by this time, kind of those smart goals, right? Specific and measurable and attainable and realistic and time bound. So that, making sure you have a plan and then holding yourself accountable to the plan.
Love it.
That's it.
So,
Mic drop.
It's like simple, but
it's
not as hard.
That's the reality. It's simple. And that's what, we talk about, especially Craig talking about AI, right? There's a million things in this world that are beyond me that I'm probably not intelligent enough for, these robotic surgeries and all this stuff. But there's a lot of ways still today to earn a good living, to achieve whatever financial goals you're trying to achieve by simply working hard and being focused.
Love it.
At least for the next 6 months.
Yeah. There you go. That's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Adam, we really appreciate you being on the podcast today. And
thanks for having me.
Congrats with all your success and your tenure. It's cool, man.
Yeah,
super cool.
Thank you.
Hey, Adam, if anybody wants to call you on your personal cell phone or text you and ask you questions about how to grow to a $36 million agency, what do you have there? Would you like to give out your number?
Yeah, I could. Actually, I can.
I'm just joking though. You don't have
I was going to 222-222.
Yeah, there you go.
That's it.
In fact, like Jason talked about buying and selling, I could even teach them how to grow to 50 and then sell off some and then grow again, right? So.
You know what's weird? You have the same phone number of every girl I met in college.
And it still doesn't work.
It still doesn't work. I keep calling. My wife is always asking, who's that 222 number you call?
Love it. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Yeah.
This has been great.
Thanks for your time, guys. Good to catch up with y'all.
Yep. Good to catch up.
All right, bye.
Have a good one.